Welcome, brothers. Hey, this is Rick, your host with the Ascension of the Warrior podcast. I'm kind of laughing here because I don't know. My mind's just kind of running off, and it's like God's calling an audible right now, and the whole idea for this podcast just got thrown out the window. It's really windy out, raining, storming, so it blew it right out the window. So, what are we going to talk about? We're going to talk about Daniel 12. Daniel 12, actually, the book of Daniel, has been showing up in my day-to-day life as far as the story of Daniel and showing up in what God is asking for me to do. This is just, this is out there. But I want to ask you a question. It's the first step in my book, The Ascension of the Warrior. What is God saying to you? That's an important question. And if you don't know what he's saying, you need to sit down, take a knee, and ask him, what are you saying? That's, like I said, that's the first step in my book, which is The Ascension of the Warrior, the Master Craftsman's Design. I paid for the book. I'll send it to you free. You just have to pay for the shipping. I don't ask for much. That's the least we can do. It's my gift. God gave it to me. God helped me write it. It has some of my story, but it has 8 lessons in there. And this first lesson, number 1, is so important because it's what is God saying to you. And in Daniel 12, God's talking to me. I've got a lot of issues that I'm dealing with in my life. We all are. For example, I've got 2 guys here that I'm looking at hiring because the last company I had hired didn't really produce any fruit for me as far as any of the projects and complete them, but they received payment. And, and then when they offered some more time to make up for that payment, they never responded to emails. So I moved on. And I talked about this in previous podcasts, but God was going through the book of Daniel with what I was dealing with. And book of Daniel, chapter 12, starts with the prince. So I want you to stop and say for a second, what is God saying to you? In your story, in your life, with what you're dealing with, your grief, your loss, you're struggling with your body or your being, your spiritual life, or your balance in relationships, or your business and your finance and job, money, whatever. Who's the prince in your story? See, in my story, it's Garrett. He's my coach, my mentor, Garrett White. He's on this mission to wake up men. He's has proven with over 70,000 men that he's woken up to step into their calling, to change their lives. He has a vision. He's on a mountaintop or a cliff, and he's looking over this valley. And he sees this valley going on, and there's this battle going down. And he sees these blue flames and these large giants, if I get the story correct. But these blue flames they're battling it out with these giants. And Garrett sees a blue flame like on his chest. He sees a blue flame, and I've always wondered what the significance of the blue flame is. 32 years ago, I lost my daughter. But about 10 years ago, I was driving a semi-truck, and I was on a delivery up in Michigan, Detroit, Michigan, just at a Ford plant on 8 Mile Road at 4 o'clock in the morning. I get out of the truck, and this guy approaches. Got to go back and unlock the doors so they can inspect. So I get out of my tractor, I get out of my cab, and he looks at me, and he knows something's really weighing on me, really, really heavy. And he says to me, hey, bud, you're missing somebody, aren't you? And I said, yeah. It just so happens this was right before June 15th. See, my daughter passed away on June 15th. It'll be June 15th of this year. It'll be 32 years. And so this guy says, I knew it. He says, it's a little girl, isn't it? And I said, yeah. And I turn around and he says, well, that's because there's a blue light that came out in the cab behind you. She has kind of white, blondish looking light, kind of looks like it's flowing. So she had blonde hair. But the rest is kind of like a blue light. Not any shape or anything, just like a blue light with blonde hair. And I said, yes, she was. She had blonde hair. Well, this, you can imagine what I was going through. And it's like, well, anyways, to make a long story short, I turned around and I made my delivery, left, said goodbye, went. And then a month later, my dispatcher says, you want to take that load up to Michigan on 8 Mile Road at the Ford plant again? We got the same delivery you did a month ago. I said, hell yeah, I'll go. Because I want to go back and see that guy again. Well, I get there, and guess what? That guy's not there. The gate guard that was there, I told him, I said, hey, where's this other guy? And he says, there's no other guy. There was a gal and him. He says, we're the only two that work this gate at this shift. Nobody else has ever worked here. We're here every night. So who was this guy? I was feeling very depressed and very low. And you can imagine driving in a semi truck in the middle of the night, just with nothing but your thoughts. Think about it. Well, anyways, in Garrett's vision, he sees blue flame. The blue flame is, and I did a lot of study, and I actually wrote a book on angels, but I did a lot of study on angels. See, the white light, if we see angels and they're in white light, those are angels who've never walked the earth. Those are God's angels. The angels that we see, or the light that we see, the blue light represents spirits that have walked the earth. So in Garrett's vision, these are the men that he's raising up. That's what the prince in the book of Daniel 12, that's what the prince is doing. He has an army to fight a battle. And then I realize in the book of Daniel, who's Daniel in the story? The Daniel's me, because I'm here to learn, gain wisdom and knowledge and growth, and to begin to fight my battles. The battles that I fight are all up here in my head, and they're daily battles with myself for the most part, but also against the voices that tell me and try to direct my life and control me to break these habits. I've been sharing a lot about my body, about how it's a sticking point for me, that when I look in a mirror, I can't stand what I see. But also in the book of Daniel, it talks about there's two guys. Daniel sees two guys standing on a riverbank, one on one side of the riverbank, one on the other side of the riverbank. He doesn't mention any names. We don't know who these people are. So I asked God, who are these people? And he doesn't tell me. I don't know. And of course, there's a figure that's standing above the water that these two men are speaking to. Well, they're speaking to Jesus. And what the point of this is I don't know who these people are. Are these two men that are going to, these two guys that I was looking at hiring? Other than that, I really didn't know. They could be people that are part of our warrior group, our council and our mastermind with the warrior trainers. Or, could be in the Man in Arena tour that's coming up in Salt Lake, Utah here just in a couple weeks. That maybe I'm going to be introduced to these two men. Maybe one of them might be you. But here's the thing. I shared yesterday's podcast. Go back and listen to it. I did a thing. I hired a coach, $18,000. I hired a coach. Between all my coaching, it's close to, like almost $40,000 or closer to $50,000 this year. I don't ask for much when I ask you to, pay for the shipping of my book. But here's the thing. God showed me this morning in my meditation and in my Bible stack, because I Bible stacked Romans 11, chapter 11, verse 33 through 35. And God showed me this vision of who those two men are that are standing on the riverbank. The two men the first one is Garrett. The second one is Coach Carter. Now, yes, Coach Garrett, he's also the prince. But the thing about it is in the book of Daniel, he never says who these two men are. So one of them could be the prince because they're speaking to Jesus. And this was such a huge revelation for me once I turn around and I found this out. This is what happened. This is what you can accomplish when you Bible stack. When you Bible stack and go deep into conversation with God. The lesson and the revelation that you can get is personal to you because God is speaking to you. You're dealing with some heavy stuff today. I know because I've been there. The day I drove that truck, I was dealing with some heavy stuff. This is not the first time that God sent somebody to me. The other time I wrote in this book. I wrote in my Angels book about that encounter in Detroit. But in the Ascension of the Warrior, I talk about the man that I picked up on the side of the road at 9:45 at night, a stranger. See, these are divine encounters. That's why step 2 in my book says, don't ignore people. God is speaking to us all the time through everybody, through me right now to you. Go read the chapter 12 of the book of Daniel. Determine who the prince is in your story. And are you the prince or are you Daniel? Because God's calling you to something greater than what you're currently doing right now. It's just some food for thought. It's just something that I want to throw out there. Well, in closing, again, I want you to pick up my book. The link is in the description of the podcast. If you don't see it or you listen to something here, just shoot me a message or comment. Put a comment and I'll get you the link. Also, You can also click on the link to join our Bible study every Monday at 7:30. We have a Bible study where we go into Bible stacking, where we can teach you how to do the Bible stacking, how to have this really deep personal conversation, to receive the revelation that is, that God wants for you. And then the third piece is you can follow us on Facebook. So with that being said, God wants you to start something. He wants you to stop something, and he wants you to sustain something. What's he saying to you? Find out the work that you need to do, and let's rise. Let's ascend together. Love you. God loves you, and we'll see you tomorrow.